Okay, so let's have a chat about Jeffree Star's chart. This is what I found above. It's from astro.com, so I believe this is very reliable for the time and the information that's on here. But one thing that stood out to me is that he's a Sagittarius rising. He's got a Sagittarius ascendant at roughly 27 degrees. Now, this is quite powerful because it's getting to the late degrees. Also, as you can see, Neptune's at like 1 degree in Capricorn, so it's pretty much conjunct that ascendant, even though it's in a different zodiac sign. That is a conjunction. Now, Neptune's spirituality, it's creativity, it's the psychic realm. So that is a very witchy, psychic, spiritual placement. And then he also has Neptune and the moon in a conjunction in Capricorn in the second house. This is also someone who can be quite spiritual, very in tune with the psychic realm, spiritual realm. A person with Neptune and the moon conjunct can be quite a compassionate person, very empathetic, very in tune with the emotions and their environment, especially the spiritual plane. Another thing that really stood out to me is that Scorpio stellium in his 12th house, including his sun, one of the luminaries, which is another kind of witchy spiritual placement. The 12th house is typically ruled by Pisces and Neptune and the spiritual world and our dreams. And Scorpio energy is all about finding the truth. It's all about the trauma and the dark side of human life and the world. He also has Venus and Pluto in a conjunction there in Scorpio. This is someone who's very powerful, and that's something that they really value and find interesting, is that power dynamic, that power and control, especially in regards to love, relationships and money. So he knows everything that's going on here, or a lot of it anyway. He also has that Sun conjunct Saturn in Scorpio. So much Scorpio power. He's one of the ones that wants to find out the truth. And then with that Sagittarius energy, he's so wise and very much as like a leader, a spiritual person, someone who's very cultured and well-traveled. And finally, the last thing that stood out to me is Mercury conjunct Uranus in that Sagittarius first house. Mercury is our mind, it's our communication style, and Uranus is the higher octave of that. It's our higher mind. It's very, very smart placement. This is someone who is very eccentric, very unique, and bigger picture, very creative, very much an inventor, very smart. These people usually have sudden bursts of just electrifying ideas and information. They can get really good psychic downloads, or just downloads from the universe or other worlds, if you want to kind of call it that. So overall, Jeffree has a really interesting chart, and obviously I'd love to dive deeper into this, but just to give you a bit of a snapshot, this person is very, very much higher octave with their thoughts, and they're very Scorpio-like, where they want to get to the truth, and they know a lot of business about people, a lot of secrets, a lot of dirt. And they're also a very spiritually connected person, someone that's very sensitive and empathetic. Now, right now, Jeffree has been all over social media for a lot of his lives that he's been doing, a lot of interviews online that he's been doing, and he's been talking about people in power, elites, people with a lot of money in like big corporations and companies. He's been talking a lot about stuff that happened in Maui with the fires, and he is kind of exposing or spilling the tea, talking about his perspective and views, and the facts that he knows about certain situations. And I feel like astrology can kind of help us understand that, and these are the transits that he's having at the moment that might give us a bit of an insight into what's happening here for him. So I guess with the transits, the first thing that's kind of standing out to me is that Pluto is on the brink. If you're using whole signs, it's basically on the brink of that second and third house for him. Now, the second house is to do with money, your possessions, wealth, and things that you value. And then the third house is our thoughts, our communication, learning. So to me, Pluto is the planet of transformation, crisis, chaos, telling the truth. And so because that planet's going between his second and third house, this is just showing that he is really wanting to speak his mind about the people that are in power and control. He really wants to speak on the things that are causing chaos and crisis in the world. So that's not surprising. And I feel like this is just the start, because as Pluto moves into that third house for him and does its like 20-year cycle, he's going to be one of those people that speaks up about this stuff quite a lot, and kind of, I guess, spills the tea on people's secrets and the truth. And then he also has Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and that's like in his 4th house if you're using whole signs. Not too sure what's going on there, but more so Saturn and Neptune being in Pisces is just really spiritual, sensitive placement. So I feel like he's really in tune with that energy at the moment. He also has Jupiter and Uranus kind of opposite his Sun and his Saturn. And that Sun and the Saturn's in the 12th house for him. So this is through his work and the things that he does on the day-to-day, especially around money and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of exposing the truth because of that Scorpio energy in that 12th house of like people in power. I guess he's using his job, his connections there to kind of spill the tea. And then his other transits are currently just, I guess, ones that happen like every year. But he has like the Sun and Mercury moving very close to his 10th house and his MC, which is the highest point of his chart. So I feel like, I guess over the next month, we can expect to hear a lot more and see a lot more about him in public. Him kind of speaking his truth with that Mercury being up there in the Sun, talking about those sorts of things in a very public manner. But yeah, I'm also finding that Saturn very interesting because it's been in his 3rd house using whole signs. Now it's in that 4th house, so lots of restrictions on his communication as well.